and well met, ladles and indeed jelly spoons. It's Neil here with another Betamaxximum Breakdown. This time, as you may have surmised from the file name in the title and from the card at the start of the video and probably the title of the video here on YouTube, we're looking at one Mr. Wolfgang's tune. Interesting thing about Wolfie is it's kind of his fault that I'm involved. Not his fault, but it's through him that I'm kind of involved in the wrestling music business, because one of his friends is a good friend of mine, and he and I, this friend of Wolfie's and mine, were working together on some music projects, and he was wanting to do some entrance music possibly for ICW, and he got me involved in working on this thing that he was working on, and I worked on a couple other bits and bobs, and one thing led to another, and now I'm the one that's doing entrance music, and you know, that's the way it worked out. But it's you know, it's interesting. So it was good that I finally got to do something for Wolfie when that time came around to do a new piece of entrance music for him. Once they stopped using "Hungry Like the Wolf" and wanted to move on to something that was a bit more, well, it was a bit more copyright friendly, shall we say? Because even though this is a known song, it's a folk song, so it's clear of copyright. You can actually use the song as long as you're kind of doing your own kind of arrangement and recording of it. So, yeah. It's based on the Johnny Cash version, but it's kind of its own twist with a few more modern kind of sounds and a bit more modern production to it. Because I kind of wanted it to be kind of a bit more sinister and whatnot to fit with Wolfie's changing his persona at the time. So let's dig into the tune. It's a wee bit more complicated than demos, as you can see from the number of tracks, and if we go into the rack you'll see there's a lot more devices going on, because there's a lot more kind of electronic elements and stuff, including some stuff that didn't actually make it into the final version, and we'll dig into some of that later on. So we'll just play it from the top and you get an idea of, if you've not heard it, you can actually listen to it on my own YouTube channel as well. It's youtube.com/Neilomac, Neio, Neilomac. Jeez, you'd think I'd actually know how to spell that. So, just dip out of that track because that doesn't really make an appearance in the final version, and we'll play it.
Tell that long-tongued liar, go and tell that midnight rider, tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter, tell him the God's gonna cut him down, tell him the God's gonna cut him down.
So yeah, that's a little taste for you. We'll sort of take it from the top, and first of all we'll look at the drums, which are pretty straightforward. If we play the track, there's the MIDI program and stuff there. We'll take it from the top again. So as you can see, it consists of two sounds that are built up from different layers. So we've got the kicks, which are like 5 different kick drum sounds all layered on top of each other, and the claps. So that's the kicks, and that's the claps. And each of the 2 clap layers is treated a little bit differently. There's echo on both of them. One of them's got a reverb on it, and there's a reverb that's on both claps as well. And then we've got the kicks. That one's got a compressor, that one's got a tape echo on it, and that one's got an echo on it. A really short echo. I think it was just to give it a bit of a kind of slapbacky kind of vibe. And that's got a reverb on it, and that's got nothing on it. So we can go into the browser and go into song samples. And assign samples, Kong 1, and we can look at some of the individual samples. So we've got this foot stomp sound for starters. It's very kind of We Will Rock You. So I can't do it fast enough to do the We Will Rock You beat. Now we've got this as quite almost like a synth kick. And then That's a bit more kind of boxy sounding. Maybe that's got a wee kind of high end thing on top, also like a hi-hat sound on top of it. Maybe that's like almost like an 808. Then we're into the claps, which is that kind of short, sort of slappy clap, and that more kind of, well, it's more like two-folk clapping, and that's a bit more. Well, that's a bit thicker sounding, I suppose. And then with the compression and reverb and stuff on top, it sounds like that. And you get that for the kick drum sound. You get enough kind of attack and body and oomph. That foot stomp sample I don't think is the same that's on the version that's used on shows, because when I changed my computer from running OS X to running Windows, I lost a couple of files that had to do with this project originally, so I had to kind of find new versions of those sounds to replace them. I think I got pretty close though, so yeah. So the drums, that's it for that. The next element we'll look at is the piano sound. So it's the kind of standard big piano sound. Now, I made a bit of a mistake when I mixed this originally. Well, not so much a mistake, it was a change of decision. See, what originally I'd done was that the track had this kind of bubbling synth bass underneath it, and I'll play it for you with that track in. And my original intent. Oh, hang on. Right. Sorry about that. That's probably going to happen a few times during this. I will need to keep sort of playing it along until the vocals stop glitching, because of how I've done the glitch sounds in the vocals. It does that. Anyway, as I was saying, that FM synth bass sort of originally bubbled along with the whole rest of the track, but when I submitted it, the sort of boards at ICW said, yeah, take that out, so I did, and it was left with this. And what I should have done was not have that low cut on there, and it would have had a bit more bottom end. And yeah, maybe one day I'll go back and remix it and send them a new version of it, but it kind of is what it is now. It's, you know, it's yeah, it is what it is, but maybe one day I'll go back and mix it again and put a bit more bottom end into the piano again. Apart from that, it's pretty standard. It's just a big film score reverb on it, and there isn't any effects in the inserts, so yeah, that's the piano. Nothing too crazy going on there, it's just kind of mostly playing root notes. Almost like a big bass part, really. And then you've got the guitars, which are double tracked. Am I still soloed the piano? No, okay. And they came from my Line 6 Variax. It's not an actual physical acoustic guitar, it's a thing that pretends to be an acoustic guitar through electronic and technological wizardry, jiggery pokery. Does a pretty good job of it, as long as you've got it mixed in reasonably low. It's probably not the sort of thing you're going to want to do, or want to use if you're doing like solo acoustic Tommy Emmanuel type stuff, but for kind of jangly, strummy, chordy things, it works quite well. Next up, we've got this little part here, which is this chimer here. Which I think is just like, it's a patch I dialed up on Thor. It's like 3 sine waves that I believe are octaves apart, maybe? Like, yeah, one's kind of in the middle, one's lower and one's higher. Through a filter and a delay, and then through the Audiomatic retro transformer to give it a bit of spookiness. Doesn't appear to be doing much now that I listen to it. Yeah, I don't really know what that's doing, to be honest, but it's not hurting it. So yeah, and there's a reverb on it as well. And again, the film score preset, which is a pretty good reverb preset and reason one I do tend to come back to quite a lot. After that, we've got the vocals, and this is possibly the most interesting bit of the whole thing because it's undergone quite a lot of processing.
Go tell that long-tongued liar, go and tell that midnight rider, tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter, tell him that God's gonna cut him down, tell him that God's gonna cut him down.
As you can see, it's quite strange and garbled sounding almost, which was an intentional thing. So for the first part, we'll just solo each of the three. Well, we've got a main vocal track and two parallel channels, and they're all being treated slightly differently. So we'll come from there. So this is the main one.
Go tell that long-tongued liar, go and tell that midnight rider, tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter, tell him that God's gonna cut him down.
So what's happening is that it's quite heavily tuned to almost like sort of share believe levels, and then we're automating the formant shifting, which is changing the kind of character of the vocal to get that kind of it's difficult to explain, but it doesn't change the pitch, but it changes the sort of tone of the voice, which if you manipulate it like that, it sounds quite strange, which is what I was going for. And then it runs into synchronous, which is on this slice and dice preset, which chops it up, but it's set to, you know, about 40% wet, as opposed to being 100% of the signal being sent through completely and none of the original being sent through. So you got all these kind of chops and stutters and stuff happening in the background. And then after that, it goes through Audiomatic Retro Transformer on the VHS thing to get a bit of a lo-fi thing. Then it's compressed. Then it's through an echo and a reverb. So quite a lot going on there. And then the next copy of it is doing something similar, as far as I can tell. Yep, it's doing pretty much the same thing, but it's I think it's on a slightly different. Yeah, it's on the 100% wet on the slice and dice for one thing. It's on the circuit preset rather than the VHS one on the Audiomatic, and it doesn't have the reverb and delay, so it sounds like this. So it just adds a kind of a crunchy top end to it all, which is quite interesting. And then you've got this last one, which is kind of holding down the bottom end of the voice. And it's, again, so in the sort of fast sort of tuning with the slice and dice, again, on a different thing. I changed up the kind of the waveforms thing, the automation, whatever you want to call it. Again, it's 100% dry wet, and it's on the bottom preset, and it does have the reverb and delay, which I maybe shouldn't have, to be honest. Yeah, you can see I've got the pitch adjust on, and it knocks it down an octave to give it that Barry White kind of effect. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing. And then you know, I've done like EQing and various channels. I've done a little bit in that vocal. That's the sub vocal. That's the top end one where I cut all the bottom end off. And then you've got this main one, which has got a nice wee mid-range hump in it to help it poke through the mix. As I was saying, that's the main thing, but there's this VCS BSS, which is cellos, basically. I was originally wanting to do like a low cello line through it, and for whatever reason, I think it's just that these sounds that I was using weren't that realistic sounding, and I just wasn't satisfied with the way it sounded, so I just took what I'd done with that, and ran it through a bunch of effects, and it started sounding like this. Again, I thought my line of thinking was to try and make it sound a bit more strange and synthy basically. So what I did was I used is that a player device? Yeah, I did use the player device in there on chords. So this was done in Reason 9. So this might have been done more recently. I think what I did just have like a regular, oh hang on, sort of low cello line, and then it goes through this. So I did this regular kind of low cello thing. So I'm going to bypass that and bypass that, and we'll see how it sounded originally. So it's just like a cello thing. So you can hear it kind of, it doesn't sound very realistic. Did I program it like that? Yeah, I did, that's why. Because I think I just copied the notes from the synth line, which is going instead of like actually programming a proper cello part. So that was a bit lazy for my part. But yeah, was just something I was experimenting with and took it down a different path. And it turned into what it turned into. Oh, I was playing around with adding a sub bass to as well, thinking what can I do to beef up the bottom end, not realising that I'd cut all the bottom end out of the piano, and if I just took out that bottom end back into the piano it would have solved my little problem. But so I was playing around with something that's basically like an 808. A sub bass with I've got the shaper there to give it a bit of distortion to help it cut through. So if I unsolo that, play it with it in and then take it out. Then play it as it kind of is now. Like I say, if I just went back to my EQ and put the bottom end back into the piano, it probably would have achieved a similar sort of thing. But it kind of is what it is, and it's is it too established to change now? I don't know. If they want me to change it, I'll change it. That's the bottom line. If the ICW boards come at me and say, hey, that sounds pretty good with that bottom end in it, then I'll run off a version with that in it. So, balls in their court, I suppose. It's the thing with doing production music. If the client says it's right, it's right. Even if you don't personally think, well, I could do this and I could do that, it's kind of not really your project. It's one of those the customer is always right kind of scenarios. That's the nature of the beast when you're doing this kind of thing. But yeah, that's about the size of it with Run On. It's like I say, it's a bit more involved in the demo track. Although I think now, given the sort of changes to Reason that have happened in the last year or so, I think if I was doing it now, I would take a slightly different approach. Combine that with the things that I've learned about production and revelations I've had about sound design and what have you. I'd be taking different approaches with it. I mean, this sort of chimey thing, I'd probably be using some of the new sounds that are in Reason 10, because you've got these. If we go over here, we've got things like Clang and Pangea that's got these really cool kind of percussive, clangy, stringed instrument kind of sounds and stuff, and I'd maybe even use a bit of Humana to give it a bit of choir or something in there. There's all sorts of things that are, have been added into Reason that would definitely be helpful to this kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd be making use of some of that if I was revisiting this tune now. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I will in the future. If the opportunity comes my way to do that, then we'll do that. But in the meantime, that's another episode of Betamaxximum Breakdown. I've been Neil O'Mac, you've been watching this, and I thank you very much for it. Like, fave, subscribe and all that nonsense. Check us out at Betamaxximum Productions on Facebook, and we'll catch you later.
Tell me God's gonna cut you down. Tell me God's gonna